Welcome to Triumph IAS. It's a daily mains practice question and answer series. This program is exclusively designed for UPSC CSE aspirants. In this video discussion, we will discuss UPSC CSE mains previous 25-year questions. Question number 1. Explain how the uprising of 1857 constitutes an important watershed in the evolution of British policies towards colonial India. Let's start with the introduction of the answer. The Revolt of 1857, or the First War of Indian Independence, was the first massive attempt to overthrow the British rule. It was a landmark event as it covered a significant geographical area across the country and involved people from different regions and communities. The main body of the answer should be number 1. The Revolt of 1857 had far-reaching consequences, and it shaped the British policies after the revolt, which is evident from the administrative, military and social reforms introduced after the revolt. Number 2. The first major step was to abolish the rule of East India Company. All territories in India were to be governed on the name of British Crown. Number 3. The policy makers of British regime realized that efforts to westernize the Indian society could outrage people. Number 4. Post-war, the government distanced itself from the activities of Christian missionaries and in general avoided interfering into the religious matters of India. Number 5. The remarkable communal harmony and Hindu-Muslim unity shown in the Mutiny led to the adoption of divide and rule policy by British government. Number 6. The policy of doctrine of lapse, which was one of the main reasons for discontent, was also dropped. Number 7. Legislations were introduced and efforts were made to ensure greater participation of Indians into executive, legislative and judicial organ of the British regime. Number 8. Major reform was seen in military where regiments were categorized on caste lines. Number 9. The concept of martial and non-martial races was brought in. Also, the number of British soldiers as compared to Indian soldiers was increased. Conclusion of the answer is: princely states were given some space into day-to-day administration, and in general the government became cautious of introducing new elements into governance of India. Question number 2. Traditional bureaucratic structure and culture have hampered the process of socio-economic development in India. Comment. Let's start with the introduction of the answer. India has inherited its bureaucratic structure from the British-era colonial regime. Not just the bureaucratic structure, but the entire political system carries the legacy of colonial regime. The enormous power and status attached to the bureaucracy still attracts the best brains in the country. The main body of the answer should be number 1. Indian bureaucracy is characterized by a hierarchical system that is spread over various ministries. Even after 70 years of independence, not much has changed in the way people are governed in India. Number 2. The culture of red tapeism still delays the functioning of bureaucracy that hampers the delivery of government services and the justice delivery mechanism. Number 3. Therefore, the officials largely remain unattached to the masses, and this practice continues to the present times. Number 4. Post-war, the government distanced itself from the activities of Christian missionaries and in general avoided interfering into the religious matters of India. Number 5. The local political interference and the Cold War BTW, the local political representatives and the coveted administrator are not new, and it also gives wrong signal to the public in general when such things come in open. Number 6. Bureaucracy encourages the evil work of government into a number of isolated and self-dependent sections, each pursuing its own needs without any adequate correlation with the rest. Number 7. Success of the government schemes depends upon the proper implementation on the ground level, which is essentially a responsibility of bureaucracy. Number 8. But since the bureaucracy is permanent and do not need popular support for their continuation in the office, their motivation to work in general welfare is questionable. Conclusion of the answer is: therefore, recently there have been voices over recruiting the top officials in civil services from the corporate sector so as to use their expertise in their respective domains. No doubt the whole bureaucratic structure need a major reform and the bureaucratic culture needs a paradigm shift in order to cater to the administrative needs of a new India. Question number 3. Adaptation of PPP model for infrastructure development of the country has not been free from criticism. Critically discuss the pros and cons of the model. Let's start with the introduction of the answer. Infrastructure in India is poor when compared to similar developed nations. The Government of India identified public-private partnership model as a way of developing country's infrastructure in the 1990s. The main body of the answer should be: Number 1. In August 2012, the Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, lifted the ban on the transfer of government-owned land, relaxed land transfer policy, and did away with the need for cabinet approval for PPP projects in order to accelerate the building of infrastructure. Number 2. PPP or 3P model is a contract between government and private entity with the goal of providing some public benefit. Benefits of PPP model. Number 1. Better infrastructure solutions than an initiative which is either fully public or fully private. Number 2. Faster project completions and reduced delays on projects. Number 3. Risks are fully appraised early on to determine project feasibility and performance. Number 4. The operational and project execution risks are transferred from government to the private player, which is generally more experienced in cost containment. Number 5. By increasing government's investment efficiency, it allows government fund to be redirected to other important socio-economic areas. Disadvantages of PPP model. Number 1. Every 3P involves risks for the private player, who reasonably expects to be compensated for accepting those risks. This may increase government cost. Number 2. Profits of the project may vary. Number 3. Government do not show any risk, which may result in less enthusiasm from government's side for completion of projects. Number 4. This model lacks last mile clearance issue. First is, contract of the project is very rigid, which may decrease private player participation. Second is, infrastructure involves large investment, and in 3P model, government ensures finances to private player but does not give money directly. Conclusion of the answer is: thus, it may result in higher tolls and taxes on public by private player.